officially.
Well, like,
Just push the button, let her roll.
Yep.
I don't know, but you know, they are expensive facilities.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought I was home for a year with taxes closed.
We're back from recess. Anybody else showing up or not? But if not, I guess we're ready to go for fire season preparation, Forest Service, DS, Sheriff's Office, BOR. Okay, who wants to take off? Looks
I can
like,
kick it off.
Go,
I'm
David.
David Nunn, Fire Management Officer with the
looks like you
Forest
have the
Service.
most information.
So, yeah. So at least for fire season here in down Townsend, our piece is we have 2 engines down here in Townsend this year. Same. We have about 10 seasonals that we have on, and they're all going to be on come June 1st. So we'll have our full-blown group in there. We've already had some folks go down. I've had some down in Kentucky. I got folks down in Georgia right now, so helping out nationally. So our helicopters that are be stationed out of the Helena Aviation Center in Helena will have one Type 3 helicopter, which have a crew members on there for heli-attack, kind of initial attack, similar to what the state has. And then we'll have a Type 1, a heavy helicopter. It's going to be a Chinook this year. So part of that is our aviation program is now a certified national short haul program. So what entails in that is that if someone down in this beetle kill backcountry gets hurt firefighting, they can put someone in EMT on a rope and sling them into a remote site, package the patient up, and then fly them out and get them to an ambulance and next some life critical support. So they're the EMTs, they're not the paramedics, so we still, when you order them, we still need to order ambulances and get them to the next care. So so when they get the call, if they are in Helena, they get the call, it'll take about 45 minutes to an hour before they can actually get to the patient and get the patient out into the thing is what they're feeling is about an hour. Part of that is having this program here. We also look at our cooperators, law enforcement, fire, if they get hurt out there. We can, talking to Bill Avey, the forest supervisor, it's part of his decision. He said he wouldn't hesitate pushing the button and trying to get that one of our cooperators out if they get hurt and life-threatening injuries piece. One thing that we're not looking to do is if, you know, Joe Public's out there hiking along, gets hurt, we have, because we're not in competition with Summit or Reach now, Life Flight, this kind of stuff. This is strictly to support our firefighting mission and also the cooperators, the kind of stuff. So, and they're also a ship that fights fire. So they also have the buckets and the crew members and so on. The biggest piece with this is the majority of the crew members are EMTs on staff. So, and the same thing with our fire folks. We've been pushing to get 2 or 3 EMTs right now on our crew down here in Townsend. We probably have 2 or 3 EMTs on the fire crew that we have out with us. So that piece, Bob Culbreth, who's not here, who's not able to be here, but he's my assistant AFMO. He's zoned between Helena and Townsend. We both are. We have a fuels planning staff that's zoned too. So we're in and out between Helena and Townsend quite a bit, in and out. Bob covers a lot more of the Broadwater County side with LAPC, Fire Council type pieces, and I'm covering more the Jefferson City, Powell, and Lewis and Clark, and then Bob helps cover Mark County since he lives down here. So with that, this season, we did get, here's our Chief of the Forest Service letter of kind of intent to our firefighting resources. I did send this out to Ed and all the other cooperators, our fire cooperators within the other counties that we work with. And more or less, kind of what it's saying is, it's life first, that we're going to be looking at not just our responders, but our cooperators piece in there, saying that we're going to assess the situation. We did have the BB, part of the Lolo Hot Shots, that got killed by a snag, and that's one of the things we're looking at is, is the risk that we're putting someone's life in jeopardy. Is it worth that piece of line? So we may be backing off to roads, backing off to ridges, and some of these smaller fires, instead of a 5-acre fire, may be 50 to 100 acres because we're trying to go to roads or ridges or trails, places that are not the standing dead beetle-killed timber. And so that's some of the things we're looking at before we go in the fire, is looking at what the risk is and addressing it and trying to play that. Everything we do has a risk to it. It's how much risk are we willing to take, and that's when we're talking with our line officer, Beth, Corey, Heather DeGeese out of Helena, and Bill Avey as we manage these fires. And that's some of the stuff Chief wants us to look at, is make sure that our strategies and tactics are commensurate with the values at risk that we have out there. We're putting people in the way in the backcountry, and we don't really have a values at risk, but then, you know, when we get closer to the wild and urban interface or houses and different infrastructure out there, is looking at the different risks in there. And also pushing in there that, you know, there's only so many, from the county side, there's so many houses we can protect and work around at that time, and there's only so much apparatus out there to put at each house, and letting the public know that when there's a big fire, there may not be an engine parked at your house. And for them, and working with Tri-County, is then to do some of that fuels management and try and do that ahead of the season. So that piece. So that's kind of what we've gotten from our Chief of the Forest Service there, and also for kind of what we're looking at for the outlook in general. As you can see on here, the general outlook, at least for the Rocky Mountains, Northern Rockies here, is going to be pretty much neutral. The heat of the summer, we're going to be neutral temperatures. I think it's on the 3rd or 4th page is the Rocky Mountains, but near normal precip, nothing jumping out saying it's going to be, you know, an extremely bad fire season. We've had pretty good snowpack coming in. It's in places, you get to the Dearborn kind of thing, they've had a little less snow, but gotten some good precip as of lately. So is in there, as you can kind of see, most of the activity is in the south, Georgia, Florida, where you can kind of see they have the fires already, are showing, you know, below normal precip, above normal temperatures. Texas, and some of the stuff down in the southwest kind of stuff. So, and Colorado is one of the ones, especially in the Rocky Mountains, that's taken a little bit. They've already had a little bit of a fire season, some evacuations going on, and so on. We had our first fire of the year up in the North Elkhorns. Lightning strike is what they've given by the tree, but there was no burn permits going on. Private Forest Service boundary there. We did have one the previous day. Was someone burned on Saturday, threw their coals out, and they kind of got away. It was right next to one of our prescribed burn units up in New York, and went right up to the burn unit and stopped. So yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at. And through the thing, we're supposed to have those a normal kind of normal precip going into it. A lot of our fires, especially around here, are kind of more of that grass driven, so it kind of gives you what we're going to have for precip coming in that May, June time frame. If we get some good grass growth, and we'll get some of those early fires, and that's usually what causes our fires. And as most people have lived through 2000, is a lot of wind driven fires, so if we get the right start in the right place and the 40-50 mile an hour winds on it, it's kind of the unpredictable piece. So, but the big change that we've had from us, and hand this out to you guys, and we're working on some new guidelines, but with the new zebra mussels in Canyon Ferry in Tiber Reservoir, we've come out with some new guidelines on especially fire apparatuses, dip sites, what do we do when we need to draft water or extract water from these reservoirs piece. And so the aviation is working on their information right now on trying to, when a helicopter comes in and dips from the dip site, how do they decontaminate their buckets when they move to a different watershed, different lake. And the same thing goes for when we draft engines and how we decontaminate, and so in here is part of the guidelines, and we're trying to get more specific, especially requirements when we bring helicopters in. One of the things is they're looking at is these new diesel heat tanks that will inject, especially when we talk about these internal loads in helicopters, that diesel engines that'll heat water hot enough to kill the zebra mussels. So, and having them as a requirement when they come into these places to be able to decontaminate before they come in and after they leave. As long as they're still dipping out of the same water source, they don't have to decontaminate if they're just going from Canyon Ferry up to the fire back and forth. But as soon as they go to a Hauser or Holter or another water source, then they have to decontaminate, and having that. So our aviation group over in Missoula, working with the DNRC and so on, FWP is trying to come up with those standards to put in contracts. So when we do have these call when needed contracts, that they can come prepared for that piece. So, and some of this is that, especially when we have draft sites in here, especially decontaminating our tanks before we have a tender go drop off here and then go pick up more water and so on. So some of that is using bleach, letting it sit for a certain amount of time in there, and heat, spraying, pulling, letting it dry out, some of those different type of tactics. So, so that's going to be a little game changer. And I know, talking to Bob Drake up in Tri-Lakes, they have that grant that we did for the fill station, which pulls out of Canyon Ferry. So that's one of the things they're looking at is what do they need to do long term with some of these draft sites that they have that were put in under FEMA dollars and Forest Service dollars, and keep that infrastructure up and keep the water from going down the road to a new site to have invasives go in a different place. So all part of the discussion we're having right now, and everyone's working furiously to try to get all it answered and work with FWP at the same time. So that's another piece that's out there. So, and then the big change that we've had, and working with the Montana Army National Guard, as I think last year's briefing, Ed was having the protection for the training site up there. The Department of Defense and so on, they went back, and so they needed a firefighting entity, paid entity, to do protection for the Limestone Hills, so they could pretty much get the keys to the range to show that they have a protection. So this is the same standard operating guide that we had in the previous years. It's just changed some names in there to who has protection. So the National Guard is paying us for having preparedness and protection for the guard started fires only. The BLM still, as of late, they had a discussion, they still have protection over a lightning strike or a firework fire, that kind of stuff. So under the 6-party agreement, BLM, Park Service, BIA, for all the entities, BLM, we all have an agreement together within Montana how we share firefighting resources. So we still do protection with the BLM, for the BLM, for lightning strike fires, the human caused fires outside of the guard training exercises. So the guard training, they this year, they don't have a lot of the bigger tanks, the anti-tank missiles going on this year that they were worried about last year. They still have some that can start fires, their ammunition that they're using out there this year, but nothing like they had in the last couple of years getting ready for some deployments. So, but we do have this new agreement signed by the colonel there, and so it gives us the authority to go in and do suppression for their fires. So that's something new that came about this year, that came probably in the last month, is when finally getting all the stuff hammered out. So that'll be the thing. And of course, working with Ed and stuff, we're always here for mutual aid and helping out across boundaries. We do a lot of some of the state land that borders Forest Service or BLM, where you do some protection for the DNRC. But as always, we're here to support whenever Ed needs us in that piece. So that's kind of from the suppression side.
Can you give an example then? Say they're out training, they start a fire.
They
What
start a fire.
happens?
if they'll have suppression responsibility, if it exceeds them, that's when they call us. So they have, through the VA, they already have some engines that they'll have out there. They'll have their little Ranger UTVs. We do train their folks, they are firefighting qualified, a lot of their folks that are out there. And they also have their fire engines that they bring out there, and then they have their big kind of HEMTTs and water apparatuses that they take out there. They'll try to suppress whatever fire they can out there, because in here it says they cannot start firing again until that fire is under control and out. So they have a lot of money sitting there waiting, you know, a lot of training dollars sitting there until that fire is out. So if it passes their capabilities, and that's when they call us. And then we bring our resources, our engines, our helicopters. So every fire out there is a billable fire to them. So if they start it, they get billed for it, piece of it. So whatever that suppression cost is. We try to do a rolling 10-year average, and through the government they cannot pay for a service not yet rendered. So the option was if they do a billable fire. Some years if the fire's, you know, a couple $100,000, they're not gonna, you know, they're gonna have a lot of money to come up with. If it's, you know, 5,000 one year, then it's not, it's within their budget. So we tried to do the rolling 10-year average, but they just couldn't do that, and so they figured out some years they'd win, some years they'd lose on the money side of things, and this is the only option they had with the treasure in that piece. So, but once the fire's out, then they can go back to their training exercise. But until it's called out, then they have to cease all firing. The biggest concern with that firing range out there is there's 3 separate areas. There's an off-limits area where they shoot all their high-powered equipment that has UXOs, unexploded ordnances out there. With that piece is they don't fly over it. You don't walk in there. No one goes in there, not even the military, for suppression. Then the other piece from Old Woman's Grave Road to the west side of that training area is a restriction area. No off-road travel. You go from the roads, you spray water, we don't put tools in the ground, type of piece. Everything east of Old Woman's Grave Road is called unrestricted, but it's still, we stay on roads. If you know, we do a little bit of mop-up chainsaw work, but still it's highly, how to best put it is, like, we don't want folks to put tools in the ground because they haven't cleared that whole area. It's saying we can't, but if the best thing, if we can go to roads and ridges and open areas, we'll try to restrict off-road travel, those type of stuff. But there's not a lot of UXOs in there, but it hasn't been cleared, so, in that piece. So, they still have active grazing in that area. They're still doing some fuel abatement work around their high impact area where they have most of their fires. We've had quite a few fires over the years, so at least some of the vegetation is under control out there in some of the piece. So, but if we are out there and we call for tenders and stuff, we'll probably be looking to Ed to be able to get some tenders and support out there. And there'd be times that maybe you know, 911 gets called and it's adjacent to private land or some of the other ground that, you know, it'd be both of us out there. So, and we do have access through military helicopters. They'll be under the control of the training officer and the military out there, but at least we'll have access to the Blackhawks or the Chinooks for water for that pieces. So, and that's one of the things that tied. So if we request for Ed to come out here, being a billable fire, then we'll be asking for them to track their time and equipment to try to get them reimbursed for that time and equipment out there too, in those pieces. So we'll always have a liaison, especially when they're firing. They're letting 911 know, they're letting us know, and I think, Ed, you're on the contact list, I believe they said, is sending out emails when they're firing and stuff, so at least we get a heads up and stuff. And then they consult us saying, hey, what's the fire danger look like, what's the weather look like, any concerns, and we have in there kind of a guidelines for them to go by to what's a high fire danger day, especially when it's red flag warning. The general pretty much said that he's going to restrict firing in red flag warning days unless it's mission critical. And so this year there's not a lot of getting deployed that's being trained out there, so it's not that mission critical kind of stuff. So they only have a month to get ready before they're on the flight over to overseas. So, that's been the kind of the biggest change for us. From a fuel standpoint, our crews, when they're not on fires, they're out sawing. They're out doing work, trying to either clear trails, get our fuels. They're out in the hills, so that's a lot of times we have a delay in response because they're an hour out sometimes. If it's a high fire danger day, we usually keep folks closer, but we still have them out sawing. They have projects up in Weasel Creek to be working on. We also have a bunch in the Cabin Gulch timber sale. We're still doing slashing and burning. Looking at this Thursday, we got a spot weather in right now. Looking at Thursday, we got some higher elevation burn units. The snow just came off of past or the harvest units that we'll be looking at burning up there. Anywhere 50 to 100 acres is what we're looking at. So we'll have some of those. We still have some units to burn on the back side of the belts in Marr County off of Wagner Gulch. But and we'll have some contract crews coming in. We have the Johnny Crow decision that just got signed not too long ago, and we'll be looking at having crews up there in the Jenkins Gulch area, those pieces of parcels we just got from the RMEF, doing some cutting up there. So it'll be close to about 300 to 400 acres of looking at getting slashed up there, conifer encroachment and grasslands, so the crews will be up there. We're hoping probably midsummer, getting that slash work done so we can look at burning next year. So that's kind of what our fuels load with implementation. So our crew's going to be extremely busy this year with how much acres they got to cut. So haven't had any changes in radio comma. We did in our dispatch center. They did get all the trunk system updated, and they also got tan and silver. Some of the emergency response for helicopters are in their database, so we don't have to have a separate radio to listen to the trunk channels, and so they can hear evacuations and so on. So they're just getting that put in right now, and they're going to be doing some testing on that here shortly. So on that piece. So, but and other than that, it's just been we've been having lately going through all the repeaters, making sure the battery backups, Duck Creek, Park Peak are up and running, and doing the general maintenance on that. So that's about it from our fire stance. So, and we just met with some of the BLM. They're doing some work up in the Iron Mass country. They'll be doing some more slashing work up there. We'll be working on some fencing and stuff, but they'll be doing some more contract for slashing up there that they did last year. So they'll have close to almost 1,000 acres slashed there by the time all their contracts are let. So.
Okay, any questions? Anybody have Dave? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I had a couple of things, and this is to kind of just give a little bit of background on, David mentioned that on our chief's letter of intent, and this was we're just starting to see a little bit different language in what the chief is saying, where we throw our folks and their efforts, and it's qualified. And his main point was we don't want to be putting people out into places where their efforts aren't going to result in something to accomplish in putting a fire out or changing its behavior. And that is something the agency is coming around to, because we can't seem to shake our average annual fatalities in firefighting, and it's between 18 and 19 people a year. And this last year, one of them was in Missoula, and these are our children. These are our, these are people we're putting out there on the fire line. So there's been a lot of kind of heart to heart, and at the same time he is saying this, our fires have gotten big, and they used to be small. We didn't used to see stuff in the early 90s like we are seeing now. So some of it has to do with us kind of, I think, maturing on what we can really make a difference on when we're fighting fires. And for us to be able to explain that sometimes to people who are seeing a fire is very scary, and they may or may not be reacting rationally to that, which I'm sure you guys have seen. So that's part of the back story on that, and I don't know how we get that word out to the community or to the rank and file. It doesn't seem that people think about this kind of stuff mostly until it's right outside their back door. And so the other thing that led me to is if there are places in Broadwater County that are the places where people are at a higher level of risk for a wildfire situation, either by the virtue of where their home is located or by virtue of the vegetation around it and where those places are, and maybe if we try and target some messaging, those are the people that need to be cleaning up their yards and putting steel roofs on and doing that kind of stuff. If the places that come to mind for you guys jump right out, it's like, this is a place, I could tell you, how many fires have we had right up in one little corner of Deep Creek Canyon since 2000? 3 of them. So, same place, same people. And they're gonna still live there, but perhaps what we can do is help with any kind of encouragement. And the NRCS has a lot of programs that has resources for them, because some of these folks it's not just clean up their brush. They need to do some stuff with their property. And the NRCS has programs that help pay for that. So, I mean, that's the part where we can help. So that's why, if you guys get to where you wanna have any kind of conversations like that, and I know the emergency planning committee does that, some of that, but we circle back to some of the same properties when it comes to some of these fires, and there's other places that are kinda just as spooky, if you ask me. And I think people are like, you know what, as long as the fire's not there, I like my house, I like where I'm at, it's pretty, birds are singing, it's a good day, so.
The trees are thick enough, they don't have to cut grass. Also on that note though, the Tri-County Wildfire or Safe Working Group, whatever, I'm part of that, so we do have mitigation projects, so if people want to do some of this stuff, we can do an assessment to see what kind of projects they need to do and what would help their situation, so if somebody comes asking you about that, throw them my way.
They can do evacuation routes too, like Ray Creek and different places, besides private property.
We got a couple of cabins now in Weasel Creek, right in the bottom. That road is nasty. You know, I mean, you can drive on out of there right up the gut of that drainage.
Private land.
Yeah, so.
Any question, comments for Beth?
I was just gonna let them know that we'll be switching full trunk here September, I believe is we're on
Yes.
track.
Okay.
After fire season, probably.
We might need to do some testing and stuff to make sure we're all on the same page there when our new system gets online, so.
Okay.
I'll let you guys know, but outside of that, thank you.
Yep.
For the update.
Now, are you guys then for evacuations, and are you guys, all the delegations and stuff, are you guys, if we say, hey, you know, we're talking to Ed and stuff, we think, you know, we're having a unified command.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we need evacuations, they're, you know, pretty seamless then on that piece.
Yeah, we're going through-
Updating that
Yeah.
evacuation guide, remember we
Yep.
put together
Yep.
a decade ago with Dwayne Halverson?
Yep.
We're updating that for their
Okay.
two-step, whatever the sheriff's
To match
office.
what that whole national standard.
Yeah, all the sheriffs are trying to get on the
Awesome.
same page, so.
And fire
you guys
wardens.
go from one county to the next, and, yeah, chiefs and everybody, so
Yeah.
this is the way it is
Perfect.
in Montana, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, do you get a beginning season delegation from the county, or is it a standing thing, or you have to get it on a case-by-case basis?
Well, no, it'll be one of our operating procedures, is that correct? I've
Right.
Wynn's the one that's been reviewing that mostly, but, we'll implement that into, this is, be our standard procedure when it comes to evacuations. And it's what everybody's been going to there. I'm trying to go off of what I've been told. But,
Jefferson, Jefferson,
Jefferson,
Lewis, Clark, and
yep.
Gallup.
And all the sheriffs, I know they brought it up at the MSPOA meeting, they're trying to get all the sheriff's departments to start following that same suit. Because the problem is they go, you know, you guys could have a fire in one spot, like, you know, Mark County and Broadwater
Yeah.
cross at the county lines, yet we evacuate one way and they you know, a warning or something. And what I think what we're realizing, we don't have the manpower or, and same,
Yeah.
we're looking at risk. How
Yeah.
are we gonna go back? You know, no, if we wanna go through and say, look, you need to get out of here. If you're not, we'll put an X or no at your driveway and that's it. So, because we just don't have the time to go back in there or the manpower sometimes, so.
Yeah.
We'll bring that up May 17th at LEPC.
Yeah.
We're meeting at 1 o'clock. You still got my
Yep,
email
I sent
picture.
Bob what Sheriff Dutton had sent out, that piece, I think, is kind of that.
Okay, I haven't
he
seen
sent
that
out,
yet.
I think,
from
and
Bob.
have him bring that just to see if you guys, and I'll send that to Win and stuff to see if that's, I'm assuming the same stuff you guys are having, thing, yep.
Yep.
Cause they came out of that same meeting and sent that out, hey, this is where we're going, we're still gonna have future discussions on if we're gonna go with the X or the O, and,
Yep.
and how that kinda falls out, so.
We've pretty much mirrored, over the years what Lewis and Clark's done, just, you know, I reinvent the wheel there, but,
Yeah,
all the deputies currently have the paint and the X's and O and evacuation forms and things like that, so that's what we do as of
Okay.
right now. Well, it sounds like sheriff's on board with that new plan
Okay.
and going along with all the other counties, so.
nice.
You don't mind us taking over your meeting, do you?
No, we're trying.
This is the
That
stuff.
was your part of
This
it.
is the stuff that's really, to me, if you wanna cause chaos,
Yeah.
not know how this goes.
Yeah,
Good question. You said the LAPC meeting the 17th. Is that a Wednesday? Did you change to a Wednesday?
No, I think it's
it's the 18th.
the 18th, I'm sorry.
Oh,
18th,
okay.
Wednesday, 18th at 1 o'clock. We're meeting now.
You're still at 1
2 to 3.
o'clock? back- or
1
back
o'clock,
to
yeah,
the-
I'm sorry, gave you the wrong date. Looked at the wrong calendar. Third Thursday,
Right, I know it always on that.
donuts.
No, one of the things, if we do have a large fire, we'll be, especially through our decision system, we'll be bringing in, you know, all our cooperators, law enforcement and fire, and even county commissioners inside things, especially when we talk about evacuations and how we manage that large fire. You take Cabin Gulch, the last one, for example, and how we're gonna manage that fire and kind of what the break points are and so on. So we'll bring all the, you know, cooperators in, part of that decision thing. It'll end up being the, you know, the agency administrator pushing the button, but we kind of bring everybody in to have that discussion of this is what we think, you know, this is big picture, this is really big picture, and what triggers those evacuations and at what point. And because sometimes it may not be a point on the map, it may be a weather threshold or, you know, more of that temporal stage instead of that spatial just on the ground. This is X on the ground, so, but we'll make sure we bring everything in on that piece too. So have a discussion. That plays into, you know, where sometimes depending on where we have camp, you know, we've used the Hoppy Ranch before because of the fairgrounds for being, you know, during rodeo times and that kind of stuff, but still trying to be able to utilize the local, what we can, some of the local infrastructure and help pay for that, you know, ICP and have them camp in different locations, so, and then we don't have anything official with the airports. Jay Lingren, our Force Aviation Officer, has been talking about, you know, as we ramp up, if we do need heli spots or utilize the airport, having some stuff that they've already had in the past for authorities to go out there and so that they can pay for using certain pieces of that fuel and also the surface, paying for some of the surface time that they have out there. So, and the other piece of that is working with DNRC and the white helicopters. for the DNRC aviation. In the past, we've always, you know, since we've had a good relationship with Ed and all this fire thing is, if it's a mutual aid or it's close to that private ground, it's usually the county requesting the DNRC helicopters to help assist with that. So we're under the same as what we've been the last couple of years, being able to use those helicopters, and it's always worked out really well. Just, you know, especially in this last fire we had from Spokane Creek, to be able to, was it Rick that ordered them and was able to get the state ships up there to kind of help protect some of the private interest up there. So, and I think we're working through search and rescue agreements. We've been lacking over the last couple of years on those. Been always here to assist, you know, the sheriff's office and stuff, and I think we're trying to get a more official agreement for the whole forest and all the counties. I think they're trying to do something more Montana-wide on those search and rescue agreements, because everyone's had their own little agreements. And so trying to yard all those up and kind of come up with one plan of how we assist and what we can use so that we have one agreement, so we can use our snowmobiles, we can use our boats if needed, we can use our equipment to help with those search and rescues even when they're not on green ground type of piece. So.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? Any more from any of you folks? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. Hope you don't have to use any of it.
Go put fire on the ground.
I want to say, I think the cooperation is awesome, magnificent.
Thanks to all of you guys. It's not the same everywhere, you know?
Nope.
That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
I just can't understand why they can't get along.
Why can't we get along? Yeah.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank
David?
you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll leave you guys some extra copies if you'd like for those.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
I'll keep one in my office and give one
Yeah.
to you.
A lot of paperwork. Okay, well, I guess. Anything else, Mike?
Do we wanna take care of that IGT thing?
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing good with fire. Sheriff. Doing what we want.
And you guys are allowed to die. Get too old for the game. That's the thing.
We're on unified command and body. We're being dead, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, and this here, I think just a final signing, right? Everything else is, we approved all this.
Yeah, we gotta, I think we have to send a check with it or something.
To the state. Yeah. There's county sign the enclosed agreement and return it along with the county IGT payment to the department as soon as possible. This is actually already been approved. I don't think we need a motion on this one. It's already been prior to be approved.
Yeah, it's already been approved, I think we just have to sign
Sign
it.
it, yeah.
I mean, you know, Ann, does that have to go to, does it have to go to Doug, do we need to put a claim in?
I'll check with Doug and find out. what
Yeah, I
the
don't think
process
that could claim, I think it just.
I don't think so either, but I'll double check with
And it says right on here, I just read that word. Goes to. Let's see.
We know.
Oh, right, that's the big, we were requesting the county sign the enclosed agreement and return along with the county IGT payment to the department as soon as possible. I lost the page, it's supposed to be signed on.
Yeah, I was saying, I get somebody off and they.
Well, the nice thing is on the new ones, it gives you a location, so you click on it.
Map pops up?
Just the day that
The eighth.
My problem is that they put the line officer with Helen on it, so then I can text them, say, hey, what's going on with that fire?
Alright, don't give them that number.
That's all I got.
Okay, not being anything else, we'll adjourn this meeting at about 1:45, close enough.